My son looked me in the eye while I was lying in the ICU tubes in my arms, heart monitors beeping, and said, "It's Mia's birthday, Mom. We can't cancel." Then they walked out, leaving me to wonder if I'd survived the night. But a month later, I did something they're still regretting to this day. So, before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you so much if you've already done it. And let me know in the comments which state or country you're watching from. So now, let's continue our story. I woke up to the sound of machines beeping in rhythm with my own heartbeat. A thin plastic tube taped under my nose was feeding me oxygen that didn't seem to do much. My chest felt heavy, like someone was sitting on it, and every breath came with a reminder that I was still here. Barely. The doctor had already told me what happened. A massive pulmonary embolism. A blood clot had traveled to my lungs, stopped my heart for nearly a minute. And if the EMTs hadn't arrived when they did, I wouldn't be lying in that bed. My mouth was so dry, it hurt to swallow. But when the nurse asked if I wanted to call someone, I said yes, before I even thought about it. Of course, I wanted to call Evan. I fumbled with the phone, my fingers clumsy under the IV line, and when his voice came through, it was surrounded by clinking glasses, laughter, and faint music in the background. "Mom, I'll be there tomorrow," he said, casual, like we were talking about meeting for coffee. "Today is Mia's birthday. Don't make it a thing." My grip on the phone tightened until my hand ached. "I'm in the ICU, Evan," I said, my voice weaker than I wanted it to be. "I could have died." There was a pause, and then his sigh. "I know, but we've had this planned for weeks. I'll see you tomorrow." He hung up before I could find words that matched the hurt crawling through me. I lay there staring at the ceiling tiles, each one a reminder that I was here alone. Hours passed. Nurses came and went, adjusting wires and checking monitors. When the night shift nurse finally dimmed the lights, I reached for my phone again, half hoping to see a message from him. Instead, I opened Mia's Instagram, a cake covered in gold glitter, a sparkler shooting light into the air, Mia smiling with her arm around Evan. The caption read, "Best birthday ever." My stomach twisted. Best birthday ever. While I lay hooked up to machines, fighting to keep my heart steady, I locked the screen and placed the phone face down on the blanket. The next morning, a hospital social worker stepped in holding a clipboard. "We need a family member to sign consent for a CT scan," she said, looking at me with polite urgency. "Your son." I nodded and gave her his number. She stepped out to call him, came back a few minutes later, shaking her head, voicemail twice. She shrugged like it wasn't surprising, and left. I sank deeper into the bed, my body weak but my mind restless. That's when the janitor, an older man with a kind face, paused by my door with his mop. "Ma'am," he said in a low voice, "I probably shouldn't tell you this, but your son, he came last night, didn't want to go in. Told the nurse you needed rest." I felt my jaw tighten as I tried to process it. He'd been here. He could have walked in and stood by my bed, and instead, he turned around. My pulse ticked faster. I asked the nurse for the patient portal login, my voice steadier than I felt. When I finally got in, I saw my emergency contact had been changed from me to Evan last week. I hadn't authorized that. No one had even told me. My hand hovered over the call button, but before I could press it, there was a knock. A man in a courier's uniform stepped in, handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in neat block letters, and left without a word. I turned it over in my hands, the weight of it strange for something so small. And for the first time since waking up, I felt a new kind of unease, one that had nothing to do with my failing body. I held the envelope in my lap until discharge, turning it over with slow fingers, while the nurse read instructions about pills and walking only from chair to bed. "You have someone picking you up?" she asked. "My son," I said, then heard my own voice and added, "Actually, I'll manage." She looked at my oxygen cannula and said, "Short steps, no stairs alone." I nodded and called the hospital van. On the ride, the driver asked, "Home, close?" "Close enough," I said, and watched the streets I knew pass by like someone else's memories. When we pulled up to my porch, I reached under the flower pot for the spare key. Empty dirt. My hand stayed in there longer than it needed to, as if the key might grow back if I wished hard enough. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again and leaned on the railing to keep my knees steady. When the door swung open, Mia stood there with a wide smile and a paper cup. "Oh my God, you're early," she said. "We were literally about to come." "From where?" I asked, stepping over the threshold. "The kitchen," she laughed lightly. "From getting your favorite tea. Earl Grey, right?" "Plain black," I said. She glanced at the cup like it had betrayed her, and said, "Right, that too." My eyes went to the living room. Blue tape marked the walls in squares. Orange donation stickers dotted the furniture. "What happened here?" I asked. "Decluttering," she said. "Staging. You know, it photographs better." "Photographs for what?" "Just in case," she said, her voice sweet as a radio host. "No decisions have been made." "Where's my ring?" I asked. She blinked. "Which ring?" "My grandmother's ring. It stays on the nightstand." "It's not on the nightstand." "Oh, valuables are in safe storage," she said, already turning toward the hallway. "For your protection." "Mine?" I asked. I didn't approve that. "You were recovering," she said. We had to move quickly. I followed her into the kitchen, each step measured because my chest still pulled with effort. On the counter sat a printed checklist: stage bedrooms, remove clutter, donate duplicates, photograph by Friday. I touched the paper with one finger and said, "Whose duplicates are these?" Mia picked up a marker and drew a cheerful star next to photograph. "We talked about simplifying," she said. "You were overwhelmed, remember?" "No," I said. "I remember almost dying." She cleared her throat. "Let's not be dramatic. You're home now." I opened a cabinet for tea. Boxes had been rearranged, labels facing forward like a store shelf. When I pulled one out, the sealed hospital envelope slid into my palm. I didn't open it. I slid it into the pocket of my cardigan and watched Mia watch my hand. "Junk mail?" she asked. "Hospita," I said. "Notes for me." "Right," she said, smiling too much. "Notes. Where's Evan?" "Running an errand. A convenient one." Her smile didn't budge. "Do you want to rest?" We set up the guest room downstairs. "Easier on the stairs." "My room is upstairs," I said. "It's not a museum piece." I started toward the hall and then stopped. A woman in a blazer stood in my doorway with a grin so polished it squeaked. "Hi," she said, stepping forward with a hand out. "Tammy, so glad you're back and feeling good." "Good?" I asked. "I'm on blood thinners." "Absolutely. You look amazing," she said. "So, just a tiny housekeeping thing." She slid a clipboard across the island. "Inspection access so our people can check plumbing and electric. No commitment, purely routine." I kept my hands at my sides. "Our people, the inspection team," she said, tapping the blank line where a signature should go. "State requires owner permission. One quick scribble and we can take the burden off you." "What burden?" "Managing all this," she said, turning her wrist to show the taped walls and labeled boxes. "We're here to help." We asked, "Are you family?" She laughed. "Honorara." I looked at Mia. "Did you hire a realtor for my home while I was in the IC?" "It's just research," Mia said. "You asked me to look into options." "I asked for help with groceries." I said. "I don't recall asking for a photographer." Tammy tried another angle. "Totally fair. But inspectors schedule out fast and we want the best for you." I slid the clipboard back to her side. "Then the best would be no." She blinked and pasted her smile back on. Of course. Think on it." She left the form anyway. "For when you're ready." "I'm ready now," I said, and turned the paper face down. Mia blew out a laugh. "You're tired. Let's get you settled." "I'll settle where my things aren't stickered for donation," I said. "Who labeled old letters?" She lifted a shoulder. "Duplicates of letters. You kept so much," she said. "We're creating calm.com is not strangers taking my quilts," I said. "Calm is my ring where I left it." "Safe deposit box," she repeated. "We'll go together." "Okay. When?" "Soon. A date." I said. "Tomorrow." "Busy tomorrow," she said. "We have the girl from staging coming." "Staging what?" I asked quietly, letting the stillness sit between us until she had to fill it. "Just options, Mia," I said. No more soft words. What's the plan you aren't naming? She tucked hair behind her ear. You need less to manage, she said. Evan and I are trying to take stress off you by moving me out of my own life, by moving you forward, she said, into a place with support. A facility, I said. She didn't blink. A community. I leaned on the counter because standing straight made my ribs tug. Who changed my emergency contact? What? The hospital portal shows my emergency contact switched to Evan last week. Who did that? He just updated it, she said. Because you were, recovering. I was cooking tea when the clot hit me, I said. Recovering came afterward. She softened her voice. You scared us, Mom. I raised my eyes and kept them there. Yet you had time to tape walls and stick stickers. Don't twist this, she said. Defensive now. We did what you couldn't. I can sign my own name, I said. I can also say no. The front door opened and Evan walked in with a plastic bag. Hey, he said to Bright. Look who's home. I noticed, I said. Did you also notice my key is missing? He glanced at Mia. We thought with contractors coming. Better too, ... contractors. I repeated. For inspections, Tammy's voice floated from the entry as she pretended to take a call. Evan lifted the bag. I got milk. You like 2%? Whole, I said. Since always, right? He said, setting it down. Whole. He reached for me like he might hug me, then stopped. How are you feeling? Breathing, I said. Alive in my house. He nodded like that was an answer and then spotted the clipboard. Mom, Tammy's just trying to help. She can help by leaving, I said. Tammy gave a small wave and stepped backward, but she didn't actually go. Evan glanced at Mia, then at me. Look, we're not trying to fight. Then don't, I said. Take the tape down. Bring my ring back. Cancel whoever's photographing my bedroom. Mia laughed too loudly. That's not how this works. How what works? I asked. Getting old, she said, and the shape of her smile told me everything. My chest went quiet inside, the way a room goes quiet before a door slams. I picked up my phone and opened my bank app because I needed one thing I could control. Evan watched my thumb and said, we were going to talk to you about bills. Were you? I said. When soon? He said, after you rested. I'm awake now, I said, and tapped into my statements. A new notification sat at the top like a bruise. Pension deposit redirected. My throat closed. I clicked dot. The money had skipped my account and landed in one I didn't recognize, labeled with an overly cheerful nickname I would never choose. House fund. I sat at the kitchen table with the phone still in my hand, staring at that house fund line on my bank app, my pulse thumping in my ears. Sleep wasn't going to happen. So, I pushed myself up careful with each step so my ribs didn't pull, and went into the study. Evan's old laptop sat on the desk, lid half open, charger plugged in. I pressed the power button, and the screen came alive without asking for a password. His messages were already open. I scrolled and my breath caught at the first subject line, Project Reset. The thread was between Evan and Mia, and the tone was so casual it made my skin prickle. Inspection confirmed for next week. Mia had typed. Evan replied, good. Once she's settled in the new place, we can finally breathe. I clicked the shared calendar link in the chat. It was all laid out. Inspection dates and estate sales scheduled for next Saturday, and a note that said, Tour Assisted Living, Mia only. My hands trembled as I opened the banking app on the laptop. There was a record of my pension deposit being rerouted to a joint account in both their names created last Tuesday. I scrolled further and found receipts for junk removal. Notes beside them read bulk sentimental dispose. I recognized the handwriting from the labels on my boxes. Then I saw a series of image files. I clicked the first, a photo of my prescription bottles lined up neatly on my kitchen counter. Underneath, Mia had written, this will help if she argues. My jaw clenched. I kept clicking. Draft listing photos from the realtor showed my living room staged with my own couch and curtains. The timestamp was the day I was admitted to the ICU. I opened the patient portal again and checked my file. There it was. A visitor limit request submitted while I was unconscious, marked as denied. They had tried to make it so no one could see me. I closed the laptop and rested my hands on top of it, feeling that first spark of something I hadn't let myself feel in days. Not hope, not yet, but certainty. I knew what they were doing now in full detail. I got up and took the hospital envelope from my cardigan pocket, sliding every printed message, every screenshot into it. The flap barely closed over the growing stack. My eyes went to the clock. Almost 3 o'clock in the morning. My chest was tight, but not from the clot this time. I needed proof. All of it. I powered the laptop back on and kept scrolling, reading every exchange, every plan they'd made while I was lying in a hospital bed. Then, just as I was about to shut it down again, a notification popped up in the corner. Estate sale, Saturday, 9 a.m. My name was on the permit. The calendar alert burned in my head while I pulled on a sweater and slid the hospital envelope into my tote. You can't do this alone, I whispered to myself, then answered myself, watch me. I called a taxi, then canceled it and walked to the bus stop because I wanted time to think. When the bus door opened, the driver said, "You good, ma'am?" I nodded. "Not yet. At legal aid." A receptionist said, "Do you have an appointment?" "I have proof," I said, lifting the envelope. A young attorney stepped out with a notepad. "I'm Priya. Come with me." I sat, hands tight in my lap. "They called it Project Reset," I said. "Estate sale on Saturday. They redirected my pension. They tried to limit visitors while I was in the ICU." Priya held out her hand. "Show me." I spread the screenshots, the drafts, the calendar. "They want me in a facility," I said. "They want my house." She scanned quickly. "You're on blood thinners." "Yes, you shouldn't be here alone," she said. "I am alone," I replied. She exhaled through her nose, firming up. "Okay. We can do 3 things now: revoke their access, put the realtor and estate company on notice, and freeze any funny business at the bank. Can it work?" "If you move fast," she said, "we'll file a revocation of any prior authorization, notify the broker that the owner contests the listing, and send a cease and desist to the estate company. We'll also draft a letter to your son and daughter-in-law, telling them to stop acting as agents." "Do it," I said. "Now," she typed, then paused. "One question. Do you have someone you trust?" "I thought I did," I said. "He's my son." She glanced up. "Understood." She printed letters. "Take these to the bank. Ask for the branch manager. Use this language: 'I believe I'm a victim of financial abuse. Please freeze any new accounts and reverse unauthorized redirects.'" "Will they listen?" "Many do," she said. "If they don't, we escalate." She slid a pen across the desk. "Sign here to authorize me to speak for you." I signed with my married name, then crossed it out and signed with my maiden name. Priya tilted her head. "That's smart," she said. "We'll also set up a safe word with the bank. Don't tell anyone, not even me." I stood. "What do I owe you?" "We'll handle that later," she said. "Right now, you owe yourself a win." "At the bank?" I asked, for the manager by name because I recognized her from church potlucks years ago. "Martha." She turned surprised. "Ellie, you okay?" "Not yet," I said and pushed the letters forward. "My pension was redirected without my consent. There's a joint account with my son's name. I want it frozen and flagged. I want my deposit returned to me." She read, eyes sharpening. "Who did this?" "Evan and his wife." I said. "They said it was to help me." "Did you authorize?" "No." "Then we fix it," she said. She typed fast, then looked up. "We'll reverse the last redirect and lock the joint account pending review. We'll require in-person ID for any further changes. I also want a new account in my maiden name," I said. "Only me. New address, new cards." "Done," she said. "Let's add a safe word." "Tulip," I said, then smiled without humor. "No one in my life knows I like flowers." "Don't say it out loud again," she said, and wrote it on a folded slip, which she slid back to me. "Memorize, then tear." I read it once and tore it into 4 pieces. "I need a small safe deposit box," I said, "for 1 ring." Martha nodded. "We'll set that up next." "I'm sorry, Ellie." "I'm not sorry," I said. "I'm awake." Outside, I sat on a bench and called the hospital. "See you," the operator said. "I need to speak to Carlos," I said. He left a note in an envelope for me. A male voice came on. "This is Carlos. I'm Ellie," I said. "You sent me the call log." He was quiet for a beat. "Are you safe getting there?" I said. "Can you tell me why you did that?" "Because I saw your son at the desk," he said softly. "We told him you were critical. He asked us to text updates. He said he had reservations. I went home and couldn't sleep. My throat tightened. You didn't have to help me. I wanted to," he said. "Keep records, and if anyone tries to change your contact without you there, tell the patient advocate. They'll fight it." "Thank you," I said. "You don't know what this means." "I think I do," he said. I hung up and stared at the street, trying to slow my pulse. Then I dialed another number from a flyer Tammy had left. Sunbright Estates. A woman chirped. "Hi," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Before I agree to a sale, do you verify the owner's consent?" She hesitated. "We rely on the family representative." "What if the family is wrong?" "We would need the owner to sign," she said quickly. "Of course. So, why is my name on a permit for Saturday?" Silence. Then, "Let me get my manager." I didn't wait. I ended the call and bought a cheap prepaid phone at a corner store because I wanted a number no one recognized. From that phone, I called the estate company again. "I'm asking as a neighbor," I said. "The homeowner. She's not confused, is she?" The woman said to Foss, "The family said she's moving to memory care." I hung up so I wouldn't say something I couldn't take back. Memory care. While I was signing discharge papers, I walked home slow, talking to myself because it kept me steady. "Breathe, Ellie. Don't argue. Document." In my kitchen, I opened my notebook and wrote the date. Then I wrote, "Redirect, reversed, safe word set, lawyer retained." I added a line. He left me at the ICU door. I kept hearing his voice on the phone, light and pleased, while people sang to his wife. I thought I had run out of tears, but they slipped down and landed on the page. I let them fall and kept writing because writing was the only way to keep my spine straight. The house was quiet, except for the soft tick of the oven clock. I dialed Evan and forced my voice into a calm I didn't feel. "We need to talk before Saturday," I said. "Here face to face." He sounded wary. "Mom, can we not do this on the phone?" "I'm not doing anything on the phone," I said. "Come by tomorrow at 8. He paused. "That's early." So was my collapse. I said, 8. He muttered, "Fine," and hung up. I stared at the cabinets and saw every place my hands used to reach without thinking. I opened the junk drawer and found 3 rolls of painter's tape and a black marker. I set them aside and said, out loud, "I'm not your project." My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Inspection rescheduled to Friday. Last year Salto M. Tammy." I typed back, "Inspection cancelled. Owner does not consent." No answer. I pictured her smile hardening like candy left too long in the sun. I washed a cup and set it upside down to dry. Then, I pulled the ring of spare keys from the hook and removed the ones I didn't recognize. My breath stayed even. My hands didn't shake. "You taught school for 30 years, I said under my breath. "You survived Frank's chemo. You can survive paperwork." I copied the body of Priya's letters into emails and hit send to the realtor, the estate company, and to myself. "Paper trail," Priya had said. "Make it boring and undeniable." A small laugh escaped me. Boring wins. A thought pressed in then, sharp and cold. If they moved this fast while I was in a hospital bed, what would they do once the sale collapsed? I looked at my front door and thought of the blue tape on the walls, the stickers on my quilts, the labels on boxes that held my life. I whispered to the empty room, "I won't warn you again." As dusk settled, I made tea and wrote names in my notebook, like a list of battles. Prija, Marta, Carlos. Under that, I wrote me. I took the hospital envelope from my tote and tucked it behind the sugar canister. If someone opened it, I would know. My phone rang. Then Priya's name filled the screen. "Tell me we're done," I said. "Almost," she said, voice tight. I ran a title search. "There's a pending transfer on death form on your house filed last week. It names Evan as beneficiary." My hand grip tightened. "I never signed that." "I know," she said, which means someone did. I didn't sleep, not even with the tea and the quiet hum of the fridge, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw my name on that transfer form next to Evan's, bold, as if I had asked for it. At exactly 8, there was a knock. I opened the door before they could, and Evan stepped in with Mia close behind, her perfume reaching the hallway before her voice did. You wanted to talk, Evan said, glancing at the table where I had set out the hospital envelope, the bank reversal form, and a copy of Priya's cease and desist letter. Sit, I said. Both of you. Mia tilted her head, like she was humoring a child. We've been really busy, Ellie. Sit, I said again, and my voice had enough steel in it that she pulled out a chair without another word. I stayed standing. While I was in the ICU, a transfer on death form was filed for this house. It lists you, Evan, as the sole beneficiary. His mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. That's just planning, he said finally. We wanted to make sure I asked, did I ask for this plan? You weren't in a position to think about it, Mia said smoothly. We were protecting your interests by staging my living room for a sale. I asked. Evan shifted in his chair. We thought you'd be relieved not to have to deal with all this when I'm what? When you're slowing down, Mia said, smiling like it was a compliment. My hands gripped the chair back in front of me. I taught full-time until last year. I run my own errands. The only thing I needed from you was my son, in a hospital room on the night I nearly died. Evan's voice rose. You're twisting everything. We stepped in because you've been struggling with what I cut in, cooking my own tea, paying my own bills, until you rerouted my pension without asking. We needed funds to start the process, Mia said. It's all for you. I leaned in. Nothing you've done is for me. Evan slammed his hand on the table. You've always been ungrateful. Ungrateful. My voice sharpened. For what? For you deciding where I'll live, what I'll own, what I'll leave behind. The room went still except for my breath. The form was forged, I said. That's a crime. Mia's eyes flickered just once before she leaned back. You can't prove that. I slid Priya's letter across the table. I can, and I've already revoked every authorization you thought you had. The bank accounts are frozen. The estate sale is cancelled. The realtor's been notified. If you try one more thing, it won't be my lawyer you hear from next. Evan's jaw worked like he was chewing something bitter. You're making a mistake. No, I said, finally sitting. The mistake was trusting you without a paper trail. That's fixed now. Mia crossed her arms. And what? You think you can manage all this alone? You can barely walk up the stairs without, what? I asked quietly. Say it. She didn't. Evan pushed his chair back. We'll talk when you've calmed down. I am calm, I said. And if you walk out that door, don't come back unless you're ready to return my key, my ring, and every piece of mail with my name on it. He hesitated, but Mia was already heading for the door. Come on, she said. He followed, but not before glancing at the envelope on the table. I saw it in his eyes. He knew what was in there, and he wanted it. The lock clicked behind them, and I slid the deadbolt for the first time in years. I walked back to the table, sat down, and pulled the envelope closer. I thought I'd feel relief, but what I felt was something sharper, colder. They weren't done. I thought the house would be quiet after that talk, but the silence had a pulse. I kept the body cam in my pocket like a secret, and told myself I'd breathe, buy bread, keep moving. At the grocery store, a woman stared at me over the apple's phone, lifted. Are you the lady from the Post? She asked. What Post? I said, though I already knew. Another voice chimed in, the one where your daughter-in-law says you're unstable. My mouth went dry, and I heard my own voice steady up from somewhere deeper. If you're going to film me, I said, get closer so you can hear me clearly. She stepped in, and the screen rose like a small wall. Say your name, she ordered. No, I said, but I'll say this. And I tapped my phone awake. Turn on your AirDrop, she frowned. Why? You're recording anyway. Might as well have the right angle. The phones around us dinged as my list popped up. ICU call log, estate sale permit, forged transfer form, and a clip I renamed for us. A young man near the serial reached for his screen. It's asking to accept something from E, he said. Except, I told him, he did. Gasps snapped through the aisle. Play it on speaker, I said, and he did. And there it was. Evan's voice, low and small. We needed the money. And Mia's answering hiss. For us. For our life. A woman in a red sweater looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. That's your son. That's my son, I said. Someone muttered. She doesn't sound confused to me. Another said, leave her alone, loud enough to echo. I nodded to the man who'd played the clip. Thank you, I said. He swallowed and whispered, I'm sorry. I left the basket where it was and walked out with my hands shaking only after I reached the sidewalk. Outside, the sky looked ordinary. People pushed carts. A child laughed near the carts. And I stood there thinking, you asked for witnesses. Now you have them. My phone buzzed before I reached the car. It's Priya, I answered. Tell me something that doesn't require a lawyer, I said, and she ignored the joke. I've got good news. The judge signed a temporary protective order, also the cash buyer you wanted approved. 11 days to closing if you sign today. Send me everything, I said. She paused. Are you okay? I'm working on it, I said. Then keep working, she said. We'll take the heat. I drove home on hands that didn't flutter. At the house, I moved fast. You don't owe anyone a museum, I told myself. I packed clothes, my quilts, one photo, the notebook, the ring, and the body cam. I set aside the rest for pickup by the shelter that had once dropped casseroles when Frank was sick. I called them. I have furniture and linens, I said. The woman asked, pick up today? Yes. We'll be there by 4 o'clock, she promised. I hung up and dialed the bank. Martha, it's me. You're safe, she asked. Getting there, I said. I want the living trust done by tonight. Beneficiaries, caregiver scholarship, and the shelter. Exclude Evan and Mia explicitly. She didn't flinch. We'll bring in the notary, she said. I'll meet you at your kitchen table. Not here, I said. Too many eyes at the branch. Understood. I set the phone down and stood with palms on the counter. I thought of Evan at 5 with jam on his chin. Of him calling me at 23 when his car died. Of him at my door yesterday asking for calm. I felt a crack inside and let it be. The doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Delivery. I opened the box and stared at what sat on top. My ICU wristband in a snack bag and a handwritten note from Mia. Sharp loops and hard dots. You'll regret this, I said aloud. Not today. I dropped both into the envelope with the forged form and snapped the clasp shut. My phone buzzed again. Priya, I'm outside. I met her by the curb. Keep your engine running, I said. Quick, in and out. Inside the branch, I signed like I was counting steps. Trust, document, funding, successor trustee language, stipend to shelter, scholarship terms, exclusion clause. The notary slid the last page toward me. Sign here, she said. I signed my maiden name, Priya. Watched my hand. You sure? I'm sure, I said. Martha leaned in. I'll move the balances now. Want checks? Just one for cash buyer closing, I said, and a small cashier's check for rent. Anywhere that has quiet, you'll have it, she said. Back at the house, the shelter truck idled at the curb. 2 women came up the steps. You donating all this? One asked. Everything but the boxers by the door, I said. Please take the bed, the sofa, the dishes. We can, she said, and then softer. Are you all right? I will be, I said, and meant it. We loaded until the rooms echoed. I left one chair and the table. I sat, wrote 2 letters, one to Priya, with copies of everything, and a thank you. She would try to brush off. One to myself, 4 lines only. You were not crazy. You were not alone. You kept receipts. You got up. I folded both and slid mine into the notebook. Then I wrote a third, the one I didn't want to write, addressed to Evan and Mia. No introduction, no apology, just a copy of the trust. A photocopy of the forged form with a yellow highlight over the signature, and a post-it stuck to the top. I taught you better. I put the envelope on the credenza by the door, right where the light hits it at noon. My phone lit up again. Mia calling. I answered. Return my ring, I said before she could speak. It's in safe storage, she said. I'll have to check the hours. Check now, I said. She laughed, cold and annoyed. You can't threaten us into loving you. I'm not trying to be loved, I said. I'm protecting what's mine. Everything you have is because of us, she snapped. We kept you afloat. You posted that I was unstable, I said. You tried to sell my life while I was wired to machines. She exhaled through her nose. I did what needed to be done. So did I said, and ended the call. I took one last walk through the house. The nail holes looked like tiny mouths. I touched the frame where Frank's photo had hung, and told him, I'm locking them out. I left the keys on the counter for the buyer, then remembered and slipped them into a small envelope labeled closing. As I lifted my bag, my phone vibrated again. A neighbor had sent a link. I pressed play and saw my own porch. Mia at the steps, speaking into her camera, voice shaking with fake grief. Please pray for my mother-in-law, she said. She's confused. We're doing our best. Comments rolled across the screen. Some believed her, many didn't. I took a long breath and walked to the car. On the way out of the neighborhood, I passed the tree where Evan fell at 8, and I kissed the scrape and told him he was brave. I drove past it without slowing down. At the stop sign, my phone buzzed hard enough to dance in the cup holder. A new video. Evan, alone in the living room, eyes red. I didn't know about the form, he said to the camera. She's not well. A second buzz. Mia, new post. Bank screenshots covering the corners like tape. He did it, her caption read. Not me. My hands tightened on the wheel. Not from fear, but from clarity. They were turning on each other. I merged onto the road and didn't look back. And with each mile, I felt the weight in my chest slide to the passenger seat where it could no longer tell me where to go. I didn't leave in the middle of the night like a thief. I left in daylight so the sun could watch me go. The buyer's agent had confirmed the wire was in. The shelter had cleared out the last of the furniture, and all that remained in the house were my footsteps. I loaded my bag into the back seat and set the manila envelope with their names on the passenger side, the trust document visible through the clear sleeve. My phone rang before I even turned the key. It was Evan. You sold it. His voice cracked halfway through. Yes, I said. And the proceeds? Not yours, I told him. Not Mia's. They're going to people who need it. People who would never leave someone in an ICU bed alone. He swore under his breath. You've lost your mind. No, I said calmly. I just stopped letting you rent space in it. Mia's voice cut in on speaker. Do you know how humiliating this is? The neighbors are talking. Your little stunt with the video was the truth, I said. The thing about truth is it survives without me defending it. She scoffed. You'll regret this. You keep saying that, I said. But all I feel is lighter. Evan said, where are you going? Somewhere you won't find me, I said, and ended the call. I drove through the neighborhood, past faces and windows, past the tree Evan once fell from, and didn't slow down. At the highway entrance, I merged without checking the rear view. My phone buzzed again with a voicemail notification, but I let it sit. Half an hour later, I pulled into the parking lot of a small-town bank 2 counties over. Inside, I opened a new account in my maiden name, deposited the cashier's check for rent, and arranged for the trust distributions to be handled. Quietly, the teller asked if I wanted a debit card. No, I said. Cash is fine. Back in the car, I rolled down the window and let the wind touch my face. For the first time in months, my chest didn't ache. My mind replayed the night in the ICU, the empty space where my son should have stood, the quiet of the machines, and I felt no urge to cry. They had taken enough of my life. I had taken the rest back. My phone lit up again. This time, a text from an unknown number with just a photo attached. It was the envelope I'd left for them, torn open on their kitchen counter. My post-it note, front and center, I taught you better. I smiled, started the engine, and pointed the car toward a road I'd never driven. Whatever came next, it would be mine. I didn't vanish to punish them. I vanished because I was done living in the shadow of people who could watch me fade and still worry more about a birthday cake than my heartbeat. For weeks, I didn't check the news, didn't answer unknown calls, didn't scroll to see what lies they were spinning. I unpacked slowly in my small, bright rental by the coast. I learned the sound of waves again. The taste of coffee without hospital bitterness. Letters from the shelter came in with photos of families sitting on my old sofa, children wrapped in my quilts. The scholarship fund sent me a handwritten note from a young nursing student. Your gift will help me care for patients with dignity. I folded it and kept it in my notebook. The last time I heard from Evan was a single-line email. We didn't know you'd go this far. I didn't reply. What I knew, and what they never understood, was that I had already gone farther than they could follow. My life wasn't theirs to plan, sell, or inherit. It was mine, every last quiet, stubborn, unbending inch of it. And now I was living it on my terms.